3 hours before his wedding, Kang Do-yun's motorcade slammed to a halt. A boy no taller than the door handle stood in the road, feet planted, refusing to move. "Stay inside," Hyun-woo said. Do-yun got out. The child's face was his face. The same jaw, the same downturned left eyelid his father had called the wolf's eye. Then a second boy stepped from behind a van. A third. Then two more, hand in hand. Five identical faces, all wearing his. The oldest held out a photograph worn soft as cloth. "Are you him?" he asked. "Mommy said not to be scared, but you have to promise not to be angry." Do-yun couldn't move. He already knew that picture. A woman with dark brown skin, laughing on a bridge in Busan at 2 in the morning, wearing his jacket. He had taken it himself. He had deleted every copy the day they told him she was dead. "Where is your mother?" The boy's chin trembled once. He forced it still. She said not to say. Welcome to AfroKorean Romance Stories. Besties, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Before we begin, if you can't get enough of Afro-Korean Mafia Boss romances, you'll love my Ultimate Mafia Boss Love Collection. It includes 15 complete stories, 20 audiobooks, and 5 exclusive bonus stories you won't find on YouTube. Simply click the link in the description. Or if you're watching on a TV, pause the video and open your phone's camera and point it at the QR code on your screen. It takes just seconds. Now let's find out who those 5 little boys really were, because I promise you, the truth is not what anyone standing on that road thought it was. Her name was Vanessa Ellis, and 6 years earlier she had come to Seoul for 11 months and stayed for 2 years. She was from a stretch of Atlanta, where the church and the funeral home shared a parking lot, raised by a grandmother who believed in 3 things: scripture, seasoned food, and never letting anybody see you cry in public. She had gone to nursing school on scholarship and loans and stubbornness. She had come to Korea on a hospital exchange program because a professor told her it would look good on her record, and because she had just ended a 4-year relationship with a man who told her on the way out that she was too much woman to manage. She had met Kang Do-yun at 3:40 in the morning in the trauma bay of a hospital in Busan, and she had not known who he was, and that was the entire reason any of it happened. He had come in with a knife wound under his ribs and 2 men who would not leave the hallway. The staff had gone strange and careful the moment they saw his face. The attending physician's hands shook. A nurse whispered a name to another nurse, and both of them found reasons to be somewhere else. Vanessa, who had been in the country 5 weeks and could barely order coffee, walked in, snapped on gloves, and said, "Sir, I need you to stop talking and lie flat." He had looked up at her with the particular expression of a man who had not been told what to do by anyone in a very long time. "Do you know who I am?" "No," she said. "And right now I care a great deal more about your blood pressure." He laughed. It hurt him to laugh, and he did it anyway. And one of the men in the hallway put a hand inside his jacket, and Do-yun waved him off without looking. She stitched him up, and she scolded him about the state of his liver. She told him to come back in 6 days to have the sutures checked, and he came back in 3. And then he came back again when there was nothing left to check, and by the 4th month, she knew exactly who he was, and by the 5th, she had stopped being able to make that matter. Here is the thing nobody ever believes about Vanessa Ellis, and it is the thing that would nearly kill her. She was not naive. She knew what he was. She had asked him directly, in a car park at midnight, with rain hammering the roof, "Have you killed people?" He had not lied to her. Not once. In 2 years. That was the terrible part. "Yes. Are you going to keep doing it?" And he had been quiet for a long time and then said, "I am trying to build something where I don't have to. It's taking longer than I promised myself." She should have opened the door and walked away into the rain. She has thought about that moment 10,000 times since. She did not walk away. She reached over and took his hand, and she felt the calluses on it, and she said, "Then try faster." 2 years later, Do-yun's father died in a hospital bed in Seoul, and everything cracked open. Back on the road, in the white light, Do-yun finally took the photograph. His hands were steady. His hands were always steady. His father had trained that into him before he was 10 years old, holding a glass of water at arm's length until his shoulders screamed. But Hyun-woo, who had known him for 19 years, saw the exact moment the man he served stopped being a man and became something with a hole through the center of it. "Boss," Hyun-woo said quietly, "we have to move. This street is open. Look at them," Do-yun said. "I'm looking." "Then say something useful." Hyun-woo did not say anything at all, and later, much later, Do-yun would replay that silence 100 times and understand it completely differently. The smallest boy, the one with the bread, had wandered close enough to touch the car. He put one hand flat on the black paint and stared at his own reflection, fascinated. Another boy grabbed him by the collar and hauled him back with a fierce whisper. That one was the guardian, Do-yun thought. Every set of brothers has one. "What are your names?" Do-yun asked. The oldest-looking one squared his shoulders. "I'm Ji-woo. That's Min-jae. That's Tae-young. That's Seo-jun. And the little one is Han-yul. He's the youngest by 11 minutes, and he never lets us forget it." 5 names. Korean names. Given by a woman who had every reason in the world to give them American ones. "How old are you?" 5, Ji-woo said. "All of us. We're the same." He hesitated. "Mommy says we're a miracle that shouldn't have happened." 5 years old. Do-yun did the arithmetic, and the arithmetic did something to his lungs. 5 years and some months ago, he had stood in a mortuary office in Busan while a man in a gray suit slid a folder across the desk toward him. Inside had been a police report, a set of photographs he had made himself look at, and a death certificate with her name spelled slightly wrong. Vanessa Ellis. Foreign national. Vehicle recovered from the Nakdong River. Body identification through dental records and personal effects. He had held her earring in his palm, the little gold hoop with the bent clasp, the one she was always losing and always finding, and he had not spoken for 4 days. Then he had gone out and burned 3/4 of his father's organization to the ground looking for whoever did it, and when the answer came back nobody did it, it was an accident, she was leaving the country, she lost control on the bridge in the rain, he had believed it, because grief is the only thing in this world that makes a suspicious man stupid. "Ji-woo," he said. His voice came out wrong. "Is your mother alive?" The boy's eyes filled. He blinked hard, twice, and did not let them fall. "Kind of," he said. 28 minutes later, 5 children were sitting in a hotel suite on the 41st floor, eating room service tteokbokki with the concentrated intensity of kids who had learned not to leave food behind. And Kang Do-yun was standing at the window with a phone against his ear, listening to a man tell him, for the second time in 5 years, something that could not possibly be true. "There's no record of her leaving the country," the man said. "There's no record of her arriving back. There's no record of 5 births. Not in Busan, not in Seoul, not anywhere in the national system. Boss, if these children exist, they exist off the books entirely. Somebody paid to make sure of it." "Somebody," Do-yun repeated. "Somebody with reach." Behind him, Han-ol had discovered the piano. Do-yun turned. The smallest boy had climbed onto the bench and was picking out a melody with one finger, slowly, badly, and completely correctly. 6 notes. A little descending phrase. Do-yun's mother had played that phrase every evening of his childhood. It was from an old song she never sang the words to. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. And it came out so sharply that all 5 boys froze. Hanul's lip went. Ji-woo instantly stepped between his brother and the man, arms out, a 5-year-old body making itself into a wall. "Don't shout at him." Do-yun crouched. He got down on the carpet in a suit that cost more than most cars, and he stayed there until the boy's arms came down. "I'm not shouting," he said. "I'm sorry. I need to know where he learned the song." "A lady taught us," Ji-woo said. "She came to the apartment sometimes. She brought rice and medicine for mommy, and she cried a lot. She never told us her name. She said we should call her Halmione, grandmother." Do-yun stood up very slowly. Somewhere in the city, in a house with a black gate and a garden his father had loved, his mother, Madame Kang Do-yun, 66 years old, 5 feet of steel in a cardigan, the woman who had held the organization together for 11 days after his father died and handed it to him spotless, was at this moment overseeing the flower arrangements for his wedding. "Hyun-woo," he said, "Boss, cancel the ceremony." The room went silent except for the sound of chopsticks. Hyun-woo did not move. "I said, I heard you." Hyun-woo's voice was low and level. "Do you understand what you're asking? The bride is Chairman Seo's only daughter. 800 guests. 4 families sitting under one roof for the first time since your father's funeral. There are men in that ballroom who have spent 5 years waiting for a reason. You cancel today, you don't get a delay, you get a war. Then we get a war. For 5 children who walked out of nowhere with a photograph anyone could have printed?" Do-yun looked at him. And here is what he saw, in the face of the man who had carried him out of a burning restaurant in 2011, who had taken a bullet in the hip, meant for Do-yun's father, who had stood beside him at that mortuary desk and put a hand on his shoulder and said, "She's gone. Brother, let her rest." He saw that Hyun-woo had not looked at the boys. Not once. Not since the road. A man who doubts a thing stares at it. A man who is afraid of a thing looks away. Something cold and clean opened up behind Do-yun's ribs. He had felt it maybe 4 times in his life, and every time, someone had ended up dead. "You're right," he said. "It's insane. Anyone could print a photograph." Hyun-woo's shoulders came down 1/2 inch. "Thank you. Postpone by 4 hours. Tell Chairman Seo I'm honoring my father at the columbarium. He'll like that." Do-yun straightened his cuff. "And Hyun-woo, get the car. You and me. I want to see this apartment." "Boss, let me send men. You and me. 300 kilometers south. In a 2-room apartment above a fish shop in a part of Busan the tourists never photograph." Vanessa Ellis was on her hands and knees, on cold linoleum, trying to remember how to breathe. The pain had a shape now. That was the part nobody warned you about. In the beginning, it had been a rumor, a vague wrongness in her side she blamed on lifting, on stress, on sleeping badly for 5 years. Now it had edges. Now it woke her at the same hour every night like a debt collector. She had known for 4 months. She had gotten the diagnosis at a clinic that asked no questions of foreigners with no papers, from a doctor who took cash and looked at her with the specific pity reserved for people who have waited too long. Stage 4. She had asked how long, because she was a nurse and she needed the number, and he had given her a range instead of a number, which told her the number was bad. 6 months? Maybe 9 if she were lucky, and Vanessa Ellis had used up all her luck getting out of that river alive. She dragged herself up against the wall and looked at the note on the table. Boys, Halmione is coming at noon. Eat the eggs. I love you more than the whole sky. Don't open the door for anyone else. Except the boys were gone. She had woken at 11, and the apartment had been empty, and the tin under the loose floorboard, the one with the emergency money, 41,001 saved over 8 months, had been open and cleaned out. And her photograph, the one she kept inside the hollow of the rice cooker where nobody would look, was gone too. She had screamed their names into the stairwell until the fish shop owner came up, and then she had found Jiwoo's drawing on the bed. It was a picture of a man in a black suit standing in front of a very tall building. The building was labeled in careful, wobbly Hangul Seoul. The man had no face. Jiwoo had never seen his face, except in a photograph he'd only glimpsed once, when he was 3, when Vanessa had been feverish and careless. Underneath, in the handwriting of a child who was teaching himself to write, because his mother was too tired to teach him, "Mommy, don't be sad. We are going to get our daddy so he can fix you." Vanessa sat down on the floor of that apartment and made a sound that had no name, because they didn't know. They were 5 years old, and they thought a father was a thing you could go and collect, like bread. They didn't know what he was. They didn't know what had happened on that bridge. They didn't know that the last time she had seen Kang Do-yun's world, it had put a hood over her head at 8 months pregnant and driven her to a river. They didn't know that the woman who came with rice and medicine, the woman they called Halmione, the woman who had kept them alive for 5 years, was the same woman who had given the order. The car pushed south through the afternoon, with Hyun-woo driving and Do-yun in the passenger seat, which was not where he ever sat, and neither man spoke for the first 90 kilometers. The boys were behind them in a second vehicle with 2 of Do-yun's most trusted men and a woman from the household staff who had already made all 5 of them laugh. Do-yun had watched that in the rearview mirror for a long time. He had never in his life wanted anything the way he wanted to deserve that sound. "Ask me," Hyun-woo said at last. "Ask you what?" "Whatever it is that's been sitting in your throat since the road." Do-yun watched the guardrail unspool. 19 years, he said. "You know what I remember most? Not the bridge in Incheon, not the restaurant. I remember you standing outside the mortuary in the rain because you wouldn't come in and let me see your face." Hyun-woo's hands did not move on the wheel. That was the tell. A man who is innocent shifts, adjusts, gestures. A man who is holding something still holds everything still. "I was giving you privacy. You were." Do-yun nodded slowly. "That's what I told myself." They came off the expressway into Busan as the light went gold. The apartment was up a hill, so steep, the road had steps cut into the pavement, past a fish shop closing for the evening, up a stairwell that smelled of salt and old cooking oil and wet concrete. The door on the second floor was standing open. Do-yun took the last 6 steps in 2 and stopped in the doorway. The room was very small and very clean. There were 2 mattresses on the floor, pushed together, and someone had drawn a chalk line down the middle and written "No crossing" on one side and "You crossed" on the other. There was a wall covered in children's drawings, dozens of them, and every single one of them had the same faceless man in a black suit somewhere in the frame. There was a plastic tub of medication bottles on the counter, arranged by time of day, the way only a nurse arranges them. And there was a woman's cardigan on the back of a chair, and a bowl in the sink with 1 spoon, and a chair by the window positioned exactly where the last of the afternoon sun would fall. Nobody was there. Do-yun crossed the room and picked up one of the pill bottles and read the label and had to put his hand flat on the counter. Hyun-woo came in behind him. He looked at the drawings. He looked at the chalk line. He looked at the mattress and the cardigan and the medication, and something in the man's face came apart very quietly, the way ice does before you hear it. She lived here, he said, to nobody. 5 years. 20 minutes from the office. And Do-yun turned around and looked at his oldest friend and said in a voice like a door closing, "How long have you known?" Hyun-woo did not answer. Down in the street, a car door slammed. Then another. Then a third. In quick succession, which is not the sound of anyone arriving to talk. Do-yun moved to the window and looked down at 4 black sedans he did not own, parked in a formation he had personally taught men to use, and at the figure stepping out of the second one. Small, immaculate, gray cardigan, silver hair pinned back. A woman of 66, standing at the bottom of a stairwell in Busan on the morning of her son's wedding. His mother looked up at the window and found him instantly, the way she always had, since he was 4 years old, and hiding. And behind him, in the little room with the chalk line down the mattress, Do-yun heard Hyun-woo finally exhale and say the 4 words that would take the floor out from under everything. Boss. She's still alive. The stairwell had 11 steps to the landing, and Kang Do-yun climbed all of them without touching the rail. She stopped in the doorway of the little room and looked at it the way a woman looks at a room she already knows. Not scanning, not searching, just confirming. Her eyes went to the chalk line on the mattress first, then to the pill bottles, then, last, to her son. "You should be dressed," she said. "The photographer has been waiting since 11. Do-yun did not move from the window. "Say it in this room," he said. "Say it standing on this floor." "Say what, my son?" "Whatever you were going to tell me in the car on the way back. Whatever version you've been polishing since you got the phone call." He turned. "And somebody did call you, because I told 4 people I was coming here, and one of them is standing behind me with his hands empty." Hyun-woo closed his eyes. Do-yun set her handbag down on the counter, precisely, beside the medications. She was a small woman. She had been small at his father's funeral, small in front of the 4 families, small when she'd walked into a warehouse in 2009 with 2 men and walked out with 3. Size had never once been the relevant measurement. "Yes," she said. "I've known where she was for 5 years. Yes, I paid the rent on this apartment through a shell company in Gimhae. Yes, I brought them rice and medicine, and yes, they call me Halmioni. And no," her voice did not rise, but something underneath it did, like water under ice. "I will not apologize for a single one of those things standing in a room I kept warm." Do-yun crossed the room. He did not touch her. He had never in his life touched his mother in anger, and he did not start then. He stopped an arm's length away and looked down at the top of her silver head and said, very quietly, "You let me bury her. I did. You watched me sit in that mortuary and hold her earring in my hand. I did. You stood next to me at a memorial I paid for, and you put your hand on my back. I did all of it." Her chin came up. "And I would do all of it again tomorrow morning, and you will understand why before this day is finished, and when you do, you will hate me exactly as much as you do right now, and I have made my peace with that." "Then explain it." "Not here. Here. Not," she said, "in front of the door." And that was when Do-yun heard the second car pull up in the street below. Doors, small voices, tumbling over each other. The particular chaos of 5 children released from a vehicle after 3 hours. Feet on the steps. Fast, uneven, someone tripping, someone laughing. Ji-woo came through the doorway first, because Ji-woo always came through first. He stopped. He looked at the empty room, at the mattresses, at the cardigan on the chair, and Do-yun watched a 5-year-old boy understand that he had made a terrible mistake. "Where's Mommy?" Nobody answered him. "Where's Mommy?" And then Hanul pushed past his brother's legs with a plastic bag of convenience store bread, still clutched in his fist, and his whole face opened up like a window. And he ran across that room and threw his arms around Kang Do-yun's waist, and said, "Halmioni." Do-yun stopped breathing. The old woman's hand came down on the back of the child's head with an ease that could not be faked, that could not be performed, that came from 1,000 repetitions. She did not look at her son while she did it. She looked at the top of the boy's badly cut hair, and her thumb moved once against his temple, and she said in a voice Do-yun had not heard since he was 6 years old, "Hanula, what have you done? What have you done, you terrible child?" "We went to get Daddy," Hanul said into her cardigan. "He's here. We got him." "Yes," she said. "I see that you did." Taeyang and Sojun had found the drawings on the wall and were checking them. The way you check that a house is still your house. Min-jae had gone straight to the medicine tub, counted the bottles with one finger, and gone very still. "3 are missing," he said. Everyone turned. The morning one, the white one, and the one that makes her sleep. Min-jae looked up. He had the same downturned left eyelid as the man in the doorway, and he was using it, right now, to stare down 4 grown adults. She took them. She only takes them if she's going far. Ji-woo made a sound. He had been holding it since the doorway, and it came out of him all at once. A 5-year-old's grief, ugly and total. And he shoved past Do-yun's leg, and ran to the window, and screamed his mother's name down into a street where she was not. And Kang Do-yun, who had ordered men into rivers, who had sat across a table from a rival and eaten a full meal knowing what was waiting outside, who had not cried at his own father's funeral, went down on his knees on that linoleum floor and pulled a child he had known for 4 hours into his chest and held on. Ji-woo fought him for about 9 seconds. Then he stopped fighting and grabbed 2 fistfuls of a charcoal silk suit and sobbed into it, hard enough to shake them both. "I just wanted her to stop being sick," he said. "She said we couldn't go find you. She said it wasn't safe. I did it anyway. I know. It's my fault." "No." Do-yun put a hand on the back of the boy's head and found, with a jolt that went through him like current, that his hand knew exactly how to do it, that his thumb moved once against the temple, the same as his mother's, the same as had been done to him. "No. Listen to me. Look at my face. You found me. Out of 11 million people, you found the one man in this country who can turn this city upside down. And you did it before lunch." He tilted the boy's chin up. "That's not a mistake. That's the best thing anyone has ever done for me. Now stop crying and help me, because you know her and I don't." Ji-woo scrubbed his face with his sleeve. "She goes to the bus terminal," he said. "When she has to go far, she goes to Nopo. She takes the 4 o'clock because it's cheapest." Do-yun looked at his watch. It was 3:51. Vanessa Ellis was in seat 14B of a bus that had not moved in 9 minutes, watching 4 black sedans block the terminal exit, and she was thinking with perfect clarity. So it took them 5 years and 1 afternoon. She had come here because Seoul was where the drawing said. She had spent 11,000 won on a ticket, and she had 30,000 left in her coat. And she had swallowed a full day's medication in one go at the terminal bathroom because she needed 6 hours of not collapsing more than she needed the next 3 days of it. She knew what those cars were. She had spent 2 years learning to read them. The bus driver was arguing with someone at the door. Passengers were craning. A man in a suit came down the aisle scanning faces, and Vanessa pulled her hood up and turned toward the window and made herself into an old woman, small and folded, the way she had learned. He passed her. He got 4 rows further and stopped, and turned around, and came back. Ellis Vanessa Saya, he said. She did not move. Ma'am? He crouched in the aisle so his eyes were below hers, hands open on his knees, and something about the deliberateness of it made her look. He was young. He was terrified. Ma'am, your sons are safe. All 5. They're in an apartment above a fish shop, and they've eaten. Ji-woo has a scraped knee from the stairs at Seoul Station, and he's very angry about it. Vanessa's hand went to her mouth. He said to tell you. The young man's Korean stumbled, restarted. He said to tell you that you're not allowed to be mad, because he already knows. She made a small sound. There's a car outside, he said. Nobody will touch you. I give you my word. And if my word isn't worth anything to you, then know that the man who sent me will bury me alive if a single thing happens to you between here and that car. Vanessa looked at him for a long moment. Who sent you? And she watched him hesitate, watched the flicker of a man deciding whether the truth would make her run, and she had her answer before he opened his mouth. Then he knows, she said. He knows. She closed her eyes. Oh God, she thought. Oh God, they've started the clock. Because there was one thing about being dead that nobody understood until they had done it. And it was this. Being dead had been the only thing keeping her sons alive. And a woman who walks out of a river does not get to walk back in. She stood up, her legs held. She counted that as mercy. Tell me his mother is not in that car, she said. The young man's face did something complicated. I can't tell you that, ma'am. They did not put her in the car with Suryeon. Do-yun had enough sense left for that. Or Hyun-woo did. And either way there were 2 vehicles idling outside the terminal in the blue evening, and Do-yun was standing between them, with his hands at his sides like a man waiting for a sentence to be read. He watched her come out of the terminal doors. She was thinner. That was the first thing, and it went through him like a blade. The coat hung on her, the wrists coming out of the sleeves were a stranger's wrists. Her hair was pulled back under a scarf. There was gray at her temple that had not been there, and she moved like a person negotiating with her own body for every step. And she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen in his life. And he had spent 5 years being certain she was ash in a box. They stopped 4 feet apart in a bus terminal parking lot in Busan, while a departures announcement crackled overhead about the 4:15 to Daegu. Neither of them said anything for a long time. You're getting married today, Vanessa said finally. Of all the things. Do-yun laughed, one broken syllable of it, and put his hand over his eyes. Was, he said. I was getting married today. Don't. Her voice cracked down the middle. Don't you dare stand there and blow up your life on my account. Kang Do-yun? You don't know what you're... I have 5 sons. You have no idea what you're standing in the middle of? I have 5 sons, and you let me think you were dead. It came out of him louder than he had intended. Loud enough that men on both sides of the lot went tense. And Vanessa Ellis, who had faced down a trauma bay full of terrified doctors, who had been hooded and driven to a river at 8 months pregnant, who was at that moment carrying a diagnosis she had told exactly nobody, did not step back 1 inch. Yes, she said, I did. Why? Because I was told to. By my mother. By your mother. She lifted her chin. Who came to me in a room in Gimhae, 11 days after your father died, with my hands still shaking, and told me that there were 2 orders out on me that night, and hers was the survivable one. The parking lot went very quiet. Do-yun did not move, but something in his stance changed. A man who has been braced for grief, rebracing for something else entirely. 2 orders, he said. She got there first. Vanessa's mouth twisted. That's what she said. I got there first, And that is the only reason you are hearing this from me, instead of feeling it from someone else. She had Hyun-woo drive the car into the river empty. She had a body from a morgue in Ulsan that nobody had claimed for 4 months. She put my earring in the water herself. Her voice was shaking now, and she kept going anyway, because she had rehearsed this speech in a 2-room apartment for 5 years, and she was going to finish it. And then she looked at me, and she said, "If he knows you are alive, he will come for you. And if he comes for you, he will die. And so will you. And so will those babies. So you will be dead, and you will stay dead, and I will keep you fed until it is safe." And you agreed? I was 31 years old and 8 months pregnant, with 5 children in a country where I couldn't read the hospital forms. And the man I loved was, she stopped. Say it. Was about to become the most dangerous man in the South, she said, and I had just found out what that meant. Do-yun turned away from her. He stood with his back to her, looking at nothing, and his hands were steady, because his hands were always steady. Whose was the other order? He said. Vanessa didn't answer. Vanessa, whose was the other order? She never told me a name, Vanessa said, but she told me one thing, and I have thought about it every single day for 5 years, and I need you to hear it exactly the way she said it. He turned around. She said, "The man who wants you dead will one day want you to be family." The blood went out of Do-yun's face. Vanessa watched it happen. She had put people back together for a living once. She knew what it looked like when someone's whole system understood something before their mind caught up. Do-yun. What time is it? He said. What? He was already moving. Ho-yun-woo, what time is it? 6:40, boss. The reception is at 8. Do-yun's voice had gone flat and fast and terrifying. 800 guests, 4 families, and I sent Chairman Seo a message 4 hours ago, telling him I was delayed because I was honoring my father. He looked at his mother, standing beside the second car with her hands folded, and for the first time in his life he saw her afraid. Mother, tell me you didn't. Suryeon said, I told him you were bringing something to the ceremony that would change the terms. You told him what? I told him the truth in a shape he could not act on until he was in a room full of witnesses. She stepped forward. Do-yun, listen to me. That man has spent 5 years buying my son with a daughter, because he could not kill you outright without the other 2 families answering. Today was the day the price was paid. Today, in front of 800 people, you become his son, and everything your father built becomes negotiable. Her voice finally broke. I have kept that woman alive for 5 years, waiting for a card I could put on the table. I did not want to play it like this. Your children took the choice out of my hands this morning at a traffic light. Those are children. They are the only thing in this world that man cannot deny, cannot buy, and cannot outvote, Sufyeon said. And they have your face. Vanessa said, very quietly, you want to bring my sons into a room with the man who ordered me killed. Nobody spoke. Say it out loud, Vanessa said, both of you, because I have hidden 5 babies for 5 years in a room the size of this car, and I am not sick enough yet to have gone deaf. Do-yun looked at her, and Vanessa saw in that look the exact thing she had spent 5 years praying she would never have to see again. The moment when Kang Do-yun stopped being a man in a parking lot and started being what his father had made him. No, he said, I don't want to bring them into that room. Relief hit her so hard her knees went. I want to bring you. At 7:52 that evening, the doors of the Grand Hansol ballroom were held open by 2 men in white gloves, who had been told the groom would arrive from the east entrance with his mother. 811 guests turned. The 4 families were seated at the front, the Yoon, the Baek, the An, and at the center table, in a charcoal suit with a white orchid in his lapel, Chairman Seo Gwang-min, 71 years old, a man who had built a shipping fortune on ports his associates had made cooperative. His daughter Seo Yerin sat beside him in a wedding hanbok worth more than the apartment above the fish shop, and she had not touched her hands to anything in 20 minutes. Kang Do-yun came through the doors alone. No mother, no bride's procession, no music, because the string quartet had stopped mid-phrase the way people do when they can feel something in a room change temperature. He walked to the front. He took the microphone off the stand. He looked out at 800 faces and found the one he wanted. And Chairman Seo smiled at him, warm as a father, and lifted his glass. "Before we begin," Do-yun said, "there is someone I want you all to meet. Enjoying the story so far? Then you'll love my ultimate Mafia Boss Love Collection, featuring 15 complete stories, 20 audiobooks, and 5 exclusive bonus stories you can't get on YouTube, which you can enjoy anytime. Just click the link below or scan the QR code by pausing the video, opening your phone's camera, and pointing it at your TV or screen. Your next favorite romance could be waiting for you before this story even ends. Now let's continue." And the doors at the back of the ballroom opened again. The doors opened, and Vanessa Ellis walked into the Grand Hansol ballroom in a borrowed black dress, with her chin up and her hands empty. 811 people did not know who she was. One man did. Do-yun was not watching the room. He had positioned himself for exactly one purpose, and every nerve he had was aimed at the center table, at a 71-year-old man with an orchid in his lapel and a glass raised halfway to a toast that would now never be delivered. Chairman Seo Gwang-min did not flinch. He did not pale. His eyes did not widen. He set the glass down. That was all. A man puts down a glass 100 ways, and this was the way you put down something you have decided you might need to be holding nothing instead of. And in that one small motion, Kang Do-yun watched 5 years rearrange themselves. "Some of you knew my father," Do-yun said into the microphone, and his voice carried the way it did in rooms like this, low and unhurried, a man who has never once had to raise it. "Some of you owed him. A few of you are only here tonight because he decided at some point not to collect." A ripple of uneasy laughter. He let it die. "My father believed that a family is a ledger. Everything in it can be counted, and everything counted can be traded. He told me that the week before he died, he looked down at Seo Yerin, sitting in 80 million won of embroidered silk, and something in his face gentled. 'I've spent 5 years believing him,' he said. 'I'm not going to spend a sixth.'" The murmur started at the back and moved forward like weather. "This woman is Vanessa Ellis," Do-yun said. 6 years ago, she put 11 stitches in me in a trauma bay in Busan without knowing my name. 5 years ago, I was shown a death certificate with her name spelled wrong on it, and I believed every word of it. And everyone in this room let me believe it, and some of you knew better." He turned to the head table. "Chairman Seo, you attended her memorial." The old man's face was pleasant and entirely still. "I attended the memorial of a young woman who died tragically," Seo said. His voice was warm, grandfatherly, pitched just loud enough to reach the nearest 40 people, which was precisely how a man builds a version of events in real time. "Do-hyun, you are not well. You've had a shock. Sit down, have water, and let us send these people home with dignity." "Was she in the river?" Do-yun said. "Do-yun, was there a woman in that river, Chairman? And here is the thing about a room containing 4 criminal families and 800 people who understand exactly what 4 criminal families are." The room did not gasp. The room got quiet. Chairs stopped. Servers froze against the walls. The head of the Baek family, a woman in her 50s with a jade pin in her hair, put down her chopsticks and folded her hands, which in that particular grammar meant, I am now a witness, and I intend to be counted as one. So Gwang-min looked around at his allies and found them all doing arithmetic. He smiled. There was, he said. Vanessa's breath went out of her. A woman drowned in the Nakdong 5 years ago. So continued smoothly. Unidentified. Tragic. Are you asking me whether I knew that the body pulled from that river was not this woman? He spread his hands. I did not, but I will say this. Since we are being frank in front of my daughter and her guests, I am not surprised. Your mother has been playing 3-card games since before you were born. If someone in this city hid a foreign woman for 5 years, look to the person who has spent 5 years trying to keep you unmarried. It was good. It was very good. Do-yun heard 40 people's opinions shift 6 degrees. Ask him about Hyun-woo, Vanessa said. The name landed in the room like something dropped from a height. Do-yun did not turn around. He had known, standing in a stairwell in Busan that afternoon, watching a man hold perfectly still. He had known, and he had not wanted to know. And there is no distance in this world between those two things. Hyun-woo, he said. Behind him, at the edge of the dais, the man who had carried him out of a burning restaurant in 2011 stepped forward into the light. He looked at his boss of 19 years. Then he did something that made 3 separate men in that room reach inside their jackets. He took his sidearm out slowly, laid it on the floor, and pushed it away with his foot. 19 years, Hyun-woo said, and only 11 of them were yours. The An family's table stood up. Sit down, Do-yun said, without looking, and 8 men sat down. Say it, he told Hyun-woo. Chairman Seo put me in your father's house in 2015. Hyun-woo's voice was steady and awful. I was 26, and I owed a debt in Daegu that would have cost my sister her hands. He paid it. That was the price. 11 years of reporting, and I did it. And there is not one thing you can do to me tonight that I have not already done to myself in a car outside your father's mortuary in the rain. The knife, Do-yun said. What? Busan, 6 years ago. The knife under my ribs that put me in that trauma bay. Do-yun's eyes had not left him. You were with me that night. You were 4 meters away, and you didn't move fast enough, and I never thought about it again for 6 years because you took a bullet for my father in 2011, and men like me don't do arithmetic on men like you. Hyun-woo's throat worked. He wanted you frightened, he said. Not dead. Not then. A frightened young heir signs things. And Vanessa Ellis, standing in a black dress in the middle of a ballroom, put a hand over her mouth, because she was doing the arithmetic too, and it went somewhere terrible and beautiful at the same time. I met him because someone tried to kill him. Then 5 years ago, Do-yun said. 5 years ago it changed. Hyun-woo looked at the floor. Your father died on a Tuesday. On the Friday, the chairman told me there was a foreign woman in Gimhae carrying your children, and that this was, his mouth twisted, a complication in the marriage timeline. He ordered it. He ordered it. Say his name. Chairman Seo Gwang-min ordered me to put Vanessa Ellis in the Nakdong River, Hyun-woo said, on the 17th of March, and I said yes. 800 people heard it. Seo Yerin, in her wedding hanbok, turned her head and looked at her father for the first time all evening. What happened next happened fast, and it happened the way these things actually happen, which is to say without anyone drawing anything. Chairman Seo laughed. It was an excellent laugh. Indulgent, weary, the laugh of an old man who has been slandered by children before. A confession, he said. From a man who has just admitted he has lied professionally for 11 years. Do you hear yourself? He is telling you he is a liar, and you are asking him for the truth. He turned to the Baekek matriarch with his hands out. Madam Baek, you have known me 40 years. I have, she said. Then, and I have never once in 40 years seen you put a glass down that fast. The room made a sound. Soso's face did not change, but he stopped talking. And a man like that stops talking for exactly one reason. There's no proof, he said quietly. You understand that? A dead woman who isn't dead, a traitor's word, and a boy's temper. That's not a ledger, Kang Do-yun. That's a story. You're right, Do-yun said. It's a story. He looked at the back doors. So let me finish it. And that was when Vanessa understood, 1/2 second too late, and turned, and said, no. The doors opened a third time. 5 boys came through them in a row, dressed in 5 small identical black suits that Kang Do-yun had ordered at 4 o'clock that afternoon by describing the sizes over the phone from memory, and they stopped just inside the ballroom, blinking in the chandelier light, holding hands. 811 people stood up, not politely, not in greeting. They stood the way a crowd stands when something has happened. Chairs going backward, a wave of noise rolling up the room and breaking, because every one of them could see it from 40 meters. The jaw, the eye, the mouth. 5 copies of the man at the microphone, 5 years old, standing in a doorway. Ji-woo scanned the room, found his mother, and his whole body sagged. Mommy! Vanessa went down the aisle so fast she nearly fell, and 5 children hit her at the waist all at once, and she folded over them and made a sound like a woman coming up out of deep water. Do-yun did not move to them. He stood at the front of that ballroom with a microphone in his hand and watched the woman he had buried hold 5 children he had not known existed 12 hours ago. And he let the room look, and he let the room understand, and he waited exactly as long as it took for 800 people to become 800 witnesses. Then he said, Chairman Seo, look at them. The old man looked. 5 years ago you gave an order about my woman, Do-yun said. You did not know there were 5. Nobody knew there were 5, including me. And now you are standing in a room with 4 families in it. And every person here has just watched what you tried to put in a river. Silence. Now, Do-yun said, somebody tell me there's no proof. Chairman Seo Gwang-min did not run, and he did not shout, and he did not have his men do anything, because his men were reading the room too, and their arithmetic was not favorable. He sat down. He picked up the glass he had set down, and he drank from it, unhurried, and then he set it down again, and said, in a voice that carried perfectly well, because everyone in the room had stopped breathing to listen, I want to say one thing to my daughter. Seo Yerin was very pale. Yerina. He did not look at her. You have been a good daughter. Appa. I said what I said. And then he turned to Do-yun, and the pleasantness was gone from his face entirely, and what was underneath it was so ordinary, so tired, so bureaucratic, that it was the most frightening thing in the room. You think you've won something, he said. You think you've made me a monster in front of the families. Fine. I'm 61 days from a diagnosis I haven't told her about either, and I have grandchildren in Vancouver, and I will spend what's left of it in a house with a garden while you spend yours explaining to 4 families why the head of the Kang organization has 5 illegitimate, half-foreign sons, and no marriage and no allies. He almost smiled. You didn't destroy me tonight, boy. You just took the last thing standing between you and everyone in this room who is currently doing math about your children's school routes. Do-yun's jaw tightened. But since you've decided to gut me in public, Seo said, let me leave you something. A wedding gift. Appa, Don't. Yeren was on her feet. I never ordered that woman killed, Seo said. The room rippled. I ordered her removed, he said. There is a difference, and in my life it has been an important one. I told Hyun-woo to put her on a plane with money and a warning, and make her stay gone. A dead foreigner is an investigation. A frightened one is a solved problem. He looked at Hyun-woo, and for the first time there was something like genuine contempt in it. Ask him who upgraded the order. Do-yun turned. Hyun-woo had gone the color of paper. That's not, he started. Ask him who called him 9 hours later, Seo said, and told him a plane wasn't enough. That is not what happened. Then say what happened. And Hyun-woo opened his mouth, and nothing came out. And Do-yun watched his oldest friend look, not at Seo, not at him, at the back of the ballroom, at a small woman in a gray cardigan, standing beside the doors she had just walked 5 children through. Vanessa felt the floor tilt. No, she said. Kang Do-yun straightened her sleeve. Mother, Do-yun said. Yes. Tell me he's lying. He is lying about a great many things, she said calmly. That is not one of them. The ballroom made a sound like a building settling. I called Hyun-woo at 11 at night on the 16th of March, Soo-hyun said, 9 hours after that man gave his order, and I told him that if he put Vanessa Ellis on an airplane, she would be found in a rented room in Atlanta, inside 6 months, with a robbery staged around her, because that is what I would have done in Seo Gwangmin's position, and that man has never in 40 years left a loose end breathing on the other side of an ocean. She looked around the room, at the 4 families, unblinking. So I told him to kill her instead, on paper, loudly, with a body, and a report, and a grieving son, because the only version of Vanessa Ellis that Chairman Seo would ever stop looking for was a dead one. You made me bury her, Do-yun said. I made him believe he had killed her. Her voice finally rose, and it was terrible. And the only way to do that was for you to believe it too. You were 29 years old, and you loved that woman like a house on fire, my son. You could not have faked it. You cannot fake grief in front of a man like him. I have tried. And her voice caught, one time, on a memory from 1998, that she did not explain to anyone in that room. And so, I did not ask you to fake it. I gave you the real thing. And I have watched what it did to you every day since, and I have not once been sure I was right. Nobody moved. Vanessa stood in the middle of that ballroom, with her children pressed against her, and understood. All at once, the way you understand a language you have been hearing for years, that the woman who had put a hood over her head and driven her to a river had done it to save her, and had let her believe otherwise for 5 years, because a woman who feels rescued gets careless, and a woman who feels hunted stays hidden. You could have told me, she said. No, Suryan said. You would have written to him. Everybody writes to him eventually. I have never once met a person who could carry that alone. She looked at Vanessa with something that was almost tenderness. Except you. You did it for 5 years. I did not expect that. It is the only calculation I have made in my life that came out better than I planned. And Vanessa Ellis started to laugh, helplessly, horribly, tears running down her face. And then the laugh turned into something else halfway through, and her hand went out for a chair that was not there. Ji-woo screamed. She went down hard on the ballroom floor in front of 800 people, and the boys went down with her, all 5 of them. And the sound they made, 5 identical voices, 1 word, over and over, was the sound Kang Do-yun would hear in his sleep for the rest of his life. He was there before anyone. He got her head off the marble. Her eyes were open and unfocused, and her lips had gone gray, and she was trying to say something, and he put his ear down against her mouth. Don't, she whispered. Don't let them. Vanessa, don't let them see me like this, the boys. A doctor, Do-yun said, and then, to a room of 800 people, in a voice that came out of him from somewhere he had never used, is there a doctor? 11 people moved, and in the chaos of it, in the noise, and the chairs, and the running, only one person in that entire ballroom stayed perfectly still and watched. And it was not Chairman Seo, who was already being escorted toward a side door by 2 men from the Baek family, who had not been asked. It was Seo Yerin. She stood in her wedding hanbok, 24 years old, looking down at a black woman dying on the floor and 5 little boys with her fiancé's face, and then she turned and looked at the side door her father had just been taken through, and her hand went slowly into the sleeve of her hanbok, and closed around the phone she had been recording with since the moment the doors first opened. The emergency room at Asan Medical Center is on the ground floor of the East Wing, and at 11 minutes past 9 that night, it received a woman with no national health number, no registered address, no legal existence, and a man behind her who put a black card on the counter and said, "Whatever it costs. And don't ask me a single question until she's stable." They asked questions anyway. Hospitals do. Vanessa answered most of them herself, in the gaps between the pain, because she was a nurse, and she knew that the fastest way through a triage desk is to hand over the chart yourself. Adenocarcinoma, pancreatic, diagnosed 4 months ago at a clinic that took cash. No treatment. No surgery. No, she had not been staged properly. No, she did not have imaging with her, because she had never had imaging at all. The attending physician looked at her for a moment, with the particular expression of a man who has just been told that a bridge collapsed and nobody called it in. 4 months, he said. 4 months. Why? Vanessa turned her head on the pillow and looked through the gap in the curtain, where 5 small boys, in 5 small black suits, were sitting in a row on plastic chairs, with their feet not touching the floor, and Jiwoo had his arm around Hanul, and Min-jae was counting something on his fingers, over and over, because that was what Min-jae did. Because there wasn't a version of it where I got sick, she said. There was only a version where I stayed standing. Do-yun did not sleep that night, and neither did the city. By midnight, the 4 families had convened in a private room at the Hansol without him, which had never happened in his father's lifetime. By 1 o'clock, Chairman Sung Gwang-min was in a house in Seongbuk-dong, with the gate closed and a lawyer awake. By 2, 3 separate people had called Do-yun's phone to explain, in language of great delicacy, that a man with 5 undeclared sons and no marriage and no allies is not a man, he is an opportunity. At 2:40 in the morning, Seo Yerin walked into the hospital's 4th-floor waiting area, in jeans and a sweater, with her wedding hair still pinned. 2 of Do-yun's men came off the wall. "Let her through," Do-yun said. She stopped in front of him. She had been crying and had stopped some time ago, and had not bothered to repair it, which he found he respected more than anything else about her. "I need to say 3 things," she said, "and then I need to leave, because there are people watching this building." "Say them." 1. "I didn't know." She said it flatly, without pleading. "You can believe that or not. He kept me for the wedding, not the business. I found out what my father was the same way you found out you were a father. In a ballroom, in front of 800 people, wearing something expensive. 2. She took a breath. "I recorded it. All of it. From the moment the doors opened to the moment they took him out the side. 4 hours and 11 minutes. Uncut, time-stamped, with the faces of every family head in the room, reacting in real time." She held up the phone. "It's already in 3 places. One of them is a law firm in Vancouver that has instructions. Do-yun said nothing for a long moment. Why? He said. Because you were right about one thing and wrong about the other. Yeren's chin came up, and for a moment she looked terrifyingly like her father. And then the resemblance passed. You were right, that 800 witnesses can't unsee 5 children. You were wrong, that 800 witnesses will say anything. Not one person in that room will testify. Not one. They'll all agree it was a shocking evening, and then they'll go do arithmetic about your children's school routes. Exactly like he said. And the recording changes that. The recording means nobody has to be brave, she said. That's the only thing that's ever worked in this country. Not courage, just a file that already exists. And the third thing, Seo Yeren looked past him, through the glass, at the row of small black suits. Third, she said, I want you to know I'm not doing this for you. My father took a woman to a river because she was inconvenient to a wedding. My wedding. Her voice finally shook. I have spent my whole life being told I was the good part of his life. The clean part. Turns out I was the reason. She put the phone back in her pocket. So the file goes to the prosecutor's office on Monday, whether you want it to or not. I'd rather you knew. She turned to go, and stopped. The little one, she said. The one with the bread. He fell asleep against my leg for about 4 minutes, while everyone was screaming. Hanul. He snores. He does. Yeren nodded once, and left. And Kang Do-yun stood in a hospital corridor at 3 in the morning, and understood that the person who had just done the single bravest thing anyone had done that night was a 24-year-old woman he had been 3 hours from marrying and had never once asked a question about. Vanessa was staged properly on Wednesday. It took 11 hours, 4 departments, and a level of access that Do-yun did not explain, and that Vanessa, being a nurse, understood perfectly and did not comment on. The oncologist was a woman in her 60s named Dr. Han, who had trained in Houston and who spoke to Vanessa like a colleague, which was the first mercy anyone had shown her in 4 months. The news was not good. It was also not what the cash clinic had said. Locally advanced, Dr. Han said. Not metastatic. There's involvement of the vessel here. She turned the screen, which is why nobody wanted to touch it, and it is why you were given a number instead of a plan. But borderline resectable after chemotherapy is a real category, and it is a category you are in, and I would like to start you on FOLFIRINOX on Monday. Vanessa sat very still. What are we talking about? She said. Honestly, not the brochure. Dr. Han did not soften it. 6 months of treatment that will make you feel worse than the disease does. Then imaging. If it responds, surgery. A Whipple, which is a large operation, and you will need to be stronger than you are now to survive it. If it doesn't respond, then we're talking about time and comfort. She folded her hands. I won't give you a percentage because you'll build your whole life on it. What I'll tell you is that 4 months ago, someone told you to go home and get your affairs in order, and that was not medicine. That was somebody who didn't want the paperwork of a foreigner with no insurance. Vanessa laughed once, wetly. So I might live. You might. I've had this conversation 90 times. I have also had the other one. Dr. Han stood. I'd like you to decide today, because every week matters, and because from what I understand, you've been making decisions alone for 5 years, and I suspect you're very fast at it. When she was gone, Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed with the printout in her hands, and Do-yun stood by the window, and neither of them said anything for a while. Say it, she said. I'm not going to say anything. You're standing there like a man not saying something. I'm standing here, Do-yun said, trying to work out how to tell you that I'll pay for anything, arrange anything, buy any doctor in any country, and that all of it is worthless, because it's the only kind of help I know how to give, and it isn't the kind you need. Vanessa looked up. What do you think I need? Somebody to sit in the chair, he said. And Vanessa Ellis, who had done a river, a birth, 5 babies, 5 years, and 4 months of a cancer diagnosis entirely by herself in a 2-room apartment above a fish shop, put her face in her hands, and finally, let somebody see it. He crossed the room and sat down beside her on the bed, and did not touch her until she reached for him. Chairman Seo Gwang-min was arrested on the 4th of April. Not for the river. There was no body that belonged to a crime, and no crime that belonged to a body. And the prosecutors were very clear about that from the first week. He was arrested for 11 years of an entirely different thing. Port contracts, customs officials, a shipping ledger that Hyun-woo had been keeping quietly in a safe deposit box in Daegu since 2019, because a man who spies for a living always eventually starts collecting insurance. Hyun-woo walked into the prosecutor's office on his own, on the 2nd of April, with the ledger under his arm and a lawyer he had paid for himself. He asked to see Do-yun first, once, for 5 minutes. They met in the underground car park of the hospital, because Do-yun would not have him upstairs. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me, Hyun-woo said. Good. I wanted to tell you one thing you don't know, and then I'll go. He looked at the concrete. The night of the 17th, the river. Your mother told me to make it convincing, and she gave me a body and a plan, and she was right. All of it worked. It was the best piece of work anyone did that year. He stopped. But she didn't tell me to take the hood off. Do-yun looked up. I took the hood off Vanessa Ellis at the top of that bank, Yoon-woo said, at 3 in the morning, at 8 months pregnant, so that she could see my face while I explained to her what was happening and why. So she'd know it wasn't happening to her. So she'd know she wasn't being murdered. His mouth twisted. That was the only decent thing I did in 11 years, and I've been holding on to it like it balances the books. And standing in that ballroom, I finally understood that it doesn't. Nothing balances. You just do the next thing. He held out his hand. Do-yun did not take it. Go do the next thing, he said. Hyun-woo nodded and went and served 6 years, and Do-yun never spoke to him again. But on the day the man was released, there was a job waiting for him at a shipping company in Mokpo that no one could trace to anyone, and Hyun-woo took it and asked nobody a single question about it, because he had finally learned how. The hardest conversation was not any of those. It happened in a hospital corridor on a Sunday, between 2 women, with nobody else in the building who mattered. Kang Do-yun came at 7 in the morning, because she knew Do-yun took the boys for breakfast at 7. She sat down in the chair beside the bed and put a container of abalone porridge on the table, still warm, and did not say anything. I know what you did, Vanessa said. Yes. I know why. Yes. I need you to understand something. Vanessa turned her head. My grandmother raised me. My mother was 19 and gone, and my grandmother took 5 kids that weren't hers, and she never once let any of us feel like a decision she'd made. And she used to say, baby, you can be right and still be wrong about what it costs somebody else. Soo-ryon's hands were folded in her lap. I have thought about that every day, she said. For 5 years. Did it help? No. Good. Vanessa let out a breath. Because I'm not going to tell you it's all right. It isn't. I missed his whole face. He missed their whole beginning. Ji-woo taught himself to write because I was too tired, and you saw that, and you brought rice. Her voice went hard. You brought rice, and you had a house with a garden. Yes, you could have brought us in, and you would have been found in 11 days, Soo-ryon said. And I would have buried 5 grandchildren instead of a stranger's body, and my son would have gone into that man's house with a gun and not come out, and there would be nothing left of anything. She turned her head, and her eyes were wet, and her voice did not change at all. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am 70 in September. I am asking you for something much smaller and much more expensive. What? Let me keep being Halmione, Suryon said. The room was very quiet. They don't know, Vanessa said. No. They'll find out. Someday. Kids always do. Yes. The old woman's hands tightened once in her lap. And when that day comes, they will look at me the way my son looks at me now, and I will have earned it, and I will still be their grandmother, because that is the only thing I have ever been able to offer anybody. I stay. She looked up. I stayed for a husband I did not love for 31 years. I stayed for an organization I did not want. I stayed in a room in Gimhae with a terrified pregnant woman for 4 hours until she stopped shaking. I am not good, Vanessa Ellis. I have never been good, but I do not leave. Vanessa Ellis looked at the ceiling for a long time. The white pills are 8 a.m., she said finally. Not 8:30. 8 Ha-Nul will tell you he already took his vitamin. He is lying. He has been lying about that vitamin since he was 3. Kang Do-yun closed her eyes. Thank you, she said. Vanessa Ellis started chemotherapy on a Monday in April. She was very sick for 6 months. There is no way to make that part cinematic, and I am not going to try. There were days she could not lift her head off the pillow, and days she snapped at her children. And one night in July when she told Do-yun to get out and don't come back, and he sat in the corridor until 4 in the morning and came back in when she asked him to. Ji-woo learned to read properly that summer because he decided he was going to read to her, and did, badly, out loud, for an hour every afternoon. Min-jae organized the pill schedule and would not let anyone else touch it. Tae-young and So-jun learned to make eggs. Ha-Nul, who was the youngest by 11 minutes and never let anyone forget it, would climb into the bed on the bad days and lie perfectly still against her side, saying nothing at all for as long as it took, which, out of the 5 of them, turned out to be the thing that helped the most. And Kang Do-yun sat in the chair. He sat in it through the first cycle and the second and the 11th. He sat in it while the 4 families reorganized around him, and while 2 of them tested him, and while 1 of them stopped. He divested the organization of everything his father had built that could not survive daylight, and it took him 4 years, and it cost him a great deal of money and 2 friendships and 1 very bad night in Incheon that he never told her about. He was in the chair on the 9th of October when Dr. Han came in with the scan. The tumor had pulled back from the vessel. The Whipple was performed on the 22nd of November, and it took 8 hours. And it went well, which is the only word surgeons use and the only word that matters. Vanessa Ellis came out of the anesthetic at 4 in the afternoon in a recovery bay in Seoul, with a man asleep in a chair beside her and her mother-in-law, who was not asleep in another one. And she looked at the ceiling and thought, with the crystalline clarity of a woman coming up out of deep water for the 2nd time in her life, well, look at that. They married 4 years later, in a garden, with 14 people. There was no ballroom. There were 9-year-old boys in mismatched suits because Ha-Nul had lost his jacket and refused to wear Seo-jun's. Seo Yerin came and gave a toast that made everyone laugh and then made 2 people cry. Kang Do-yun, 74 and slower now, held Vanessa's arm on the walk down because there was no one else to do it, and because she had asked, and Vanessa had said yes. And when it was done, Vanessa stood at the edge of that garden with a glass of something she wasn't supposed to drink and watched 5 identical boys chase each other through the flower beds, and Do-yun came and stood beside her, and neither of them said anything for a while. "Do you ever think about it?" he said. "About what?" "The traffic light." Vanessa laughed. "Every day." 5 years old, Do-yun said. 5 years old, and he took 41,000 won, and a photograph, and 4 brothers on a bus, to a city he'd never seen, to find a man he'd never met, because he thought that's what you do when your mother is sick. He got it from somewhere. He got it from you. He got it from both of us, Vanessa said, and that is the terrifying part. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you wish this story could keep going, it can. The Ultimate Mafia Boss Love Collection includes 15 complete stories, 20 audiobooks, and 5 exclusive bonus stories, created especially for true Afro-Korean romance fans. Click the link in the description or simply scan the QR code by pausing the video and opening your phone's camera to get instant access in just a few seconds. I can't wait for you to discover your next favorite love story. Like this video if you want to see more powerful stories like this. And if you're new here, welcome to the family. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, because we tell stories like this one every single week. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next video.